Welcome to the Critical Cinema Club. I'm Colm.
I'm Sean.
And today I wanted to discuss a subject that we haven't actually discussed on this channel for quite a while. And the reason why we thought we'd have this discussion is because I've recently watched this new trailer for Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Have you seen the trailer?
I haven't. So I'd heard from you about a little bit about what your thoughts were, and I have no idea. We'll get into it in a minute, but I'm sort of refusing to have anything to do with Star Trek at the moment. But so I haven't watched the trailer. So what I have got it set up here next to me. I'm going to watch it, and then you can see my live reaction. All right, so far so good.
We begin. I'm Captain Nala Ake, Chancellor of Starfleet Academy before today. Led you to this moment. You here now. You weave together the future.
Oh, right.
And seek.
What the?
Explore. Boldly go where no one has gone before.
Why is he whistling the Star Trek theme tunes? How does he know that?
This is part of my issue with New Trek. And this kind of came out in Strange New Worlds, where it's become a bit too self-aware. Well, that's Paul Giamatti as well, by the way, who is an incredibly good actor. I feel like he's lowered his standards being in this. It must be a really good payday for him. Yeah, why is he whistling the theme tune?
Why was that woman dancing? What's all that about?
I mean, I can expect this series to be all about talking about your feelings and crying in corridors, you know, the usual with the Alex Kurtzman era Star Trek. There was one thing that really stuck out to me on this one, and I've watched a few videos about this, and I don't want to get too controversial, but Star Trek's always been about diversity. It's always been about breaking down barriers, and that is kind of like the backbone of Star Trek from the original series. But there was one particular character that came up there, and I kind of thought, how is that even possible? And it's a female Jem'Hadar, which looks like a cross between a Klingon and a Jem'Hadar. And there's multiple things wrong there. That the Jem'Hadar is a genetically engineered life form, and there were no females, and that was established in DS9. The Klingons and the Jem'Hadar wouldn't like mate because they're mortal enemies. The Klingons just, you know, that would never happen. I think this is set around the same time as Discovery in the future. I haven't got past season 2 of Discovery, so I don't know how far in the future it is. You'll probably know better than me, Sean.
Quite far, hundreds of years.
Yeah.
To the point where, how's the Golden Gate Bridge still there? It's closer to the year 3000 than 2000, I'm sure. It's very much like what Star Wars is now. It seems to be like run by a committee, doesn't it? Well, we've got you can see the beats that they want to hit and the notes they want to hit. I feel like if you'd asked AI to come up with a trailer, that's exactly what it would have looked like.
There were multiple things in that trailer that really irritated me to a point. The first thing is the captain. She sits down as if she's frightened of the chair. She's like, oh, it's a bit too comfy.
Which one's is that the woman? Because I recognised her from Batman versus Superman.
Yes.
I don't know her name, but I've seen her in that.
Yeah.
She's got that raspy voice, hasn't she?
She's quite distinctive. I think I've seen her in a few things, and she's a good actor. I mean, this one thing about this series is it's got a lot of people in that I've never seen before because it's a young cast. There's a few noticeable people in there. There's obviously Robert Picardo as the Doctor. Yeah. I believe he's playing the Doctor from Voyager. There's Paul Giamatti, as we just saw at the end, whistling the theme tune for some reason. But there's also splatterings of member berries in this trailer just to try and tell you that this is still Star Trek. This is still connected. So you've got the James T. Kirk Pavilion, and then there's a whole list of names on a board. And I saw Captain William Riker, and then there was that screen that said whatever happened to Captain Sisko.
It looked like the cover from the Bridge Commander PC game.
Leading away from this, talking about New Trek as a whole, this franchise to me seems as if it's hanging by a thread, and it's like what Worf says, today is a good day to die. And I was wondering, well, when did it die? To me, it feels like a slow death, slow, painful death for a franchise that has it's lived long and prospered for so long, and now it's like, no, I'm done.
Yeah, it's new and old Trek. I think it's Nemesis is the last proper Trek, and then you've got the Abrams movies, and then this what's come since has been a mix between the two, hasn't it? And it's never really clicked for me. It's like they're like fan movies, fan series. We've been watching Next Generation, and just the slow burn ethical dilemma episodes. You're never going to get anything like that ever again. Now it's lasers and young people running around, and I don't know.
Crying in corridors.
I sounded really old then. I get off my lawn.
Well, I'm with you on this. I'm absolutely with you on this. Yeah. It's for me, things can't stay the same. You cannot do Star Trek or Star Wars. You cannot do them the same way that they were done 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. You have to move with the times. But I feel that the times that Star Trek is moving with, it can't quite make up what it wants to be. And you'll look back at Star Trek at this point and thinking, well, who did this appeal to? And I'm asking that now, who does this appeal to?
I think a part of it is, and they're doing it on Netflix now, where they are gearing up towards the TikTok sort of. I suppose this is going to be a wider conversation, but people don't sit and watch TV in the same way that they did 20, 30 years ago. You know what I mean? It's like people got phones in their hands. If it's not like grabbing you in 30 seconds, it's not good enough nowadays. So it never gets out of the boardroom now, unless it's something like this, unfortunately. And maybe we're aging out. I don't know. I mean, they're not aiming these at us, are they? Actual Star Trek fans, they're not interested in establishing. They're trying to get new people on board. This looks like it could have been anything. It could have been a show about the Air Force, but it's just got a Star Trek sticker labeled across it.
It doesn't need to be Star Trek.
It doesn't need to be Star Trek.
And it's interesting because I was reading also that there are talks with Bakula.
Yeah, Scott Bakula.
Scott Bakula, sorry. There were discussions with him about doing an Archer series as President Archer. And it was with somebody who was writing I think it was involved in series 3 and 4 of Enterprise. Again, we don't do research on this channel because I can't be asked.
No, but they were the best seasons as well, so that would be encouraging.
It was, and I've never been a big fan of Enterprise. Those first 2 series I thought were quite a slog to get through.
Oh, if you can get through them, the last episode of series 2 is like, whoa, it's like a different show. And it's like something. It's like they literally just forgot that they were in first gear. Oh shit! Hang on, let's get into 5th.
Yeah. And they kind of kept this going. It probably warranted a 5th season. I mean, that finale was a little bit. It was never really accepted by a lot of the fandom, and I feel that the writers and the producers of the time probably thought, well, we didn't deliver.
It's like I know you didn't watch it, but I think like an episode or 2 before the end. That should have been the last episode, but then they continued it. A major character died, and everyone's like, "What the fuck?" And then, the last episode was just Riker on his afternoon off.
Yeah,
who somehow looked 10 years older and quite a few pounds heavier, and he'd squeezed from his old TNG suits. And
the Pegasus episode, isn't it?
Yeah, and then it just like, oh right, well, I guess they thought it was funny, but it just felt like a slap in. If you actually enjoyed Enterprise, and then the last episode was treated as a joke, and it was just Riker going, isn't it funny? Look where we are.
My honest opinion on this, and I know that there's going to be people out there who are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. It's all subjective. We've all got our own opinions. I've loved Star Trek since the 80s. Star Trek 3 was probably the first Star Trek film I ever watched, and Next Generation, my favorite Star Trek series. And Sean and I have discussed this at length on subsequent videos, but I feel that the people who have the keys to the car are running it off the road. It's almost like they're insulting our intelligence as fans. They're trying to kind of appeal this to Zoomers and the TikTok age, as you said. For me, it's either you hand the keys over to somebody more capable. We've discussed this before, like Terry Matalis, I think would be a good choice for it. Even giving it back to someone like Ronald D. Moore or Nicholas Meyer or someone like that, getting them involved. You have to give the fans something new. You can't keep going back and doing the same thing. We can't keep seeing different iterations of Kirk. We can't keep seeing Picard come on the screen because Patrick Stewart is in his 80s now. They have to give us something which is subsequently Star Trek.
I think what it boils down to for me is this Star Trek these days is trying to be something it's not, and it doesn't do those things as well as those things it's trying to copy are, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I completely agree.
So it's sort of emulating other. I can't think what shows they're trying to emulate off the top of my head, but it feels like they're trying to. They're seeing something over there that looks good. Let's do that, but Star Trek. And instead, they should just make Star Trek. You should lean into what works.
Yes.
So they're not playing to their strengths. What would seem an easy win to me, and I'm still like, why haven't they done it? Is the new Enterprise show with Seven of Nine. I mean, it's right there. You could easily make a show out of that, and it would appease both sides of the crowd.
Yeah.
But what they've done instead is, no, forget that. We're not doing Star Trek, but it is Star Trek, but not really.
If you look at the Abrams films, the Kelvin films, they were made in the ilk, if you will, of Star Wars. Sorry. So they wanted to be a little bit more fast paced, wanted to be a little bit more action packed, less about the discovery. You know, that word seems tainted now because of the series, but it's less about the wonder of discovering strange new worlds and new civilizations and stuff. It's all like flashes and explosions, and you know, it's less about the characters as well. There's very little character development in those films. You can argue that Kirk has a bit of an arc, Spock does too, but the rest of them not really. And then you look at Discovery, I would say that they looked at Game of Thrones and thought, okay, let's do something like what Game of Thrones are doing, and we'll try and add those kind of dark elements into this, such as with what they did with the Klingons and the darkly lit halls and the violence and the swear. The Star Trek's got swearing in it.
I know. It's all serialized now. So, you know, back in the day, I mean, you had this sort of bottle episodes with the vast majority of the episodes. A lot of shows from back then were like Buffy and you know, all these shows had bottle episodes. But nowadays, the Discovery onwards, it was all one big episode. Like each season was a big episode. I think a really good way to tell the difference between explain the difference between old and new Star Trek is what you were just saying then about characters and things. Our favourite Star Trek film, Wrath of Khan, one of probably the most exciting things that ever happened in the Star Trek film was when Khan turns up in the Reliant and he's got Kirk bested.
Yeah.
Kirk outwits him and it's a cat and mouse. But now it's who's got the most lasers. Do you know?
Yes. Yeah.
You would never see that now. But that was brilliant because it was exciting. But it also, what you knew of the characters informed their decisions and it made sense. And only Kirk could have done that, and only Khan could have fallen for that. I can't tell you anything about these newer characters, right? They're just so bland and feel like they've just been generically painted in by numbers. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. And I think what kind of was going through my mind that when you were saying that there is that Star Trek 2 was written and directed by, well, it was co-written by and directed by somebody who was unfamiliar with Star Trek. Nicholas Meyer was like, oh, is that the thing with the guy with the ears? Harve Bennett and is it Jack Sawyer, I think his name was. Apologies if I'm not saying his name right. They were both unfamiliar with Star Trek, and Harve Bennett went and watched all the 70-odd episodes of the original series. He tried to familiarize himself with what Star Trek was, and Nicholas Meyer came on board, and he saw something in it which kind of evoked, like, you know, Hornblower in space. And he knew that. He knew how to write Hornblower, and he knew how to blend these two kind of things together. And, you know, Star Trek going forward doesn't necessarily need to be written or move forward by somebody who knows Star Trek that well. It just needs to be somebody who's competent with storytelling, competent with character development. This is something that Star Trek now does not have. I mean, Alex Kurtzman, I've said this multiple times before, should not be allowed anywhere near this series. He shouldn't even be allowed anywhere near Hollywood or anything TV related or film related. The guy is an absolute hack, and he's killing this franchise because it's a vanity project for him. He sees something in this that he thinks he can kind of regurgitate out to the world, saying that this is what Star Trek is now. You like it or lump it.
And I feel like it was interesting what you talk about Nicholas Meyer. Sometimes it's a beautiful thing that can happen when someone new comes on with fresh eyes, and that was a natural evolution with the militaristic sort of vibes he brought. That no one before that would have ever thought to do that. I don't think Roddenberry liked it, did he?
No, he didn't.
But it made sense, and it reinvigorated the entire franchise because he saw it in a new way. So the motion picture is worlds apart from what Star Trek 2 is, and that was a natural evolution. And then I think Next Generation went one further, and it made it more of a sort of cruise liner. But these days, I can't see what identity it's got other than I don't know what to say.
I mean, you had one episode of Strange New Worlds where they're all singing and dancing. It was what is that all about?
Well, there's another one where they're puppets, like Jim Henson puppets. So I've not to be honest with you, this sounds really bad, but we got to the point where I thought, you know, Pike as a captain, that was interesting, and then they brought in the guy who was meant to be Kirk, and I thought, don't do it. I mean, there's only one William Shatner. You can never replace him.
I've got the same feelings about Spock. I think there's only one Leonard Nimoy, and as much as Zachary Quinto did a good job with Spock in the Abrams films, it's hard to replicate those characters that have been played for so long by these brilliant actors. Kirk is always going to be Shatner's character because it's Shatner's mannerisms, it's his voice, it's his movement, it's his demeanor that makes the character what it is.
Yeah, and it's Nimoy's when he's Spock. He's got this brilliant way of playing it straight, but it's almost like you see in his eyes there's some emotion there, and it's always that in that performance there's always something where you're trying to pick out the human in there, and I don't know that can ever be replicated. I feel like they are infused with those actors. So and my feeling, and I've said it so many times, I hate going back. It just doesn't work. It's done and dusted.
I'd actually like to see something in between Undiscovered Country and Next Generation. There's a whole 70 odd years there of stories that could have been told. You go from the kind of like advanced original series era, if you will, all the way to Next Generation. And it's the evolution of the technology and how they go from, even the different kind of uniforms and stuff like the Enterprise C. And I'd like to see a little bit more from that era.
And you could also, I could envision like an Andor type series where there's a fallout from, I could pitch this in a room, a fallout from the attack at Kittimer. You've got Romulans, Klingons, Federation, and there's this, I bet there was all sorts of Andor type things going down in that time. And you could easily tell a story there and it'd be interesting. But I just don't think that's what they want to do. I just don't see that conversation ever getting out of that room because they go, but no, we need young people running around and it's got to be flashy. And I mean, that trailer, I already know what the story is. The young cadets, and they've got to save the day. I feel like I've already seen it in my mind. In fact, there was an episode on Deep Space Nine where they did that. They did it in the Abrams films. They were cadets, weren't they? And
Star Trek 2.
Yeah, Star Trek 2. But that was a great way of doing it because you had the whole story was about these aging characters and this new life blood coming in. So I feel like that's already been ticked, and I just don't see anything in that trailer that makes me think I've got to see it as a casual fan or a Star Trek fan. It doesn't. The biggest crime at the moment is they're not ticking either box. It's not grabbing for a casual viewer. There's not enough there, and there's not enough there for a Star Trek fan. I don't think so. Give me a good Star Trek show.
And it's a constant retconning as well. The Strange New Worlds, that retcons the original series to a point, in my mind. I mean, how do you connect that to the original series, especially Discovery? How do you connect that to the original series? For me, they have to be happening in different timelines. They can't be the same
pissed
thing.
Me off actually with Discovery because you have this show where they just shoehorned it in to a certain time period, which they did with Enterprise to some degree, I would say as well. Came up with this whole backstory about Spock had this secret sister all along. I was getting fucked off straight away. And but then they wanted to have the cake and eat it because they wanted that sort of time period aesthetic or whatever, even though it looked nothing like that. But then they put it in the future anyway. That was clearly the aim from the beginning. Why not just have it in the future to begin with? What's all this messing about for? And it's just shit anyway. So
I think this is a problem which is going on with a lot of franchises at the moment, whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars. There's too many things going on at the moment where you're having to hark back to what's been done before. Well, this is what we're familiar with, so we're just going to shoehorn something in to connect what is new with what's been done before so that we can tell you that it's the same thing, even though it's not.
Star Wars is going down bad, isn't it? All these Marvel shows have been shit. Now this is shit. What's going on? Why are these shows shit?
Because it's these people coming in to manage all of it. I mean, Kevin Feige at Marvel, he's overseen everything from the start. So it's almost like he's used up all of his points. He's used up all of his ideas, and his creative kind of drive is gone.
I feel like he's had his out of office on for the last 5 years.
He's on autopilot, isn't he? He's been replaced by AI.
He's popped out for a coffee and he's come back and the room's like that meme from Community where he comes back with a pizza and it's all on fire. Bring Robert Downey back, come on.
Because they did that with Picard season 3, which is the only shining light in this whole new Trek. Picard season 3 was good. It was littered with member berries back to Next Generation and the original series and the original series films. And that was to keep the likes of you and me engaged. Hey. But when it's done too heavily, like in that trailer, the the James T. Kirk Pavilion. What? Why? Why do it like? Oh, it's James T. Kirk in it. He used to be captain and all that. Like, yeah.
But it's interesting you mentioned Picard, because I feel like the first two I feel like there's a conspiracy going on. The first two seasons, they wanted them to be shit. There's no other explanation.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like what was happening with the new Star Wars films, where you've got the cast right there. You know what we want to see. Why aren't you doing it? And then it got to season 3, and I think they looked at each other and said, "Oh, we're going to have to do the thing now where we actually make the good season that everyone wanted to see."
Yeah.
But that could have been season 1. I don't. Why
should
would
have
they
started there? Should have started there.
They should. I think what the problem was, they wanted it to be where people latched onto these new young characters and they could just sidestep the old guys. Right, we've got this young girl now. You love her. She's the main character. And we go, no, we want Riker. We want Troy. And I went, damn it.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing with this. I mean, that's why they put Robert Picardo in there, because you've got to have these sprinklings of authenticity. But really, the cake underneath is a turd.
It's a cake with raisins in it.
They've put some Robert Picardo on there. And people won't know the difference. Once they bite in, they'll love it, I promise. And we don't love it. So you're never going to get these brave episodes again, are you? You're going to get, people crying and being brave and overcoming past trauma, all that bollocks. And it's garbage, really.
The only time you ever saw Kirk cry was at Spock's funeral, and he really held it in. Yeah. Honestly. And in the new Trek, it's like they stop their turn and start crying.
Well, in the new Trek, oh my goodness, where the magic Khan blood and all that stuff.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. So that was the biggest problem with the Kelvin films, was in Into Darkness. It was trying too hard to lean on something that was far superior. They should have just gone in their own direction, done something brand new. They've got these characters, well-established characters. And I guess this is where it all stems from, like the member berries and stuff, because it worked well with Star Trek 2009. But with Into Darkness, it's kind of right. We have to replicate what's been done in 1982 because Khan was such a good film.
Well, that's why, this is what pisses people off, because they want to have the cake and eat it. They want to tell new stories, but they're sort of building a story on previous relationships that have been established in the past. So do you want new stories or not? Because you're saying you want to have new stories with new characters, but actually you've trodden over this. Basically, it was an excuse to remake Wrath of Khan.
I just wanted to quickly read out some of the comments for the new trailer for Starfleet Academy. So the first one I've come across is actually one that made me laugh the most. It's Star Trek Beyond Recovery.
Yeah, I like it.
And the next one was, have you guys ever considered making an actual Star Trek series? The next one day Star Trek will come back in all its glory. Today's not that day. I don't think it will, unfortunately. But next one made me laugh as well. Seems like it's a great time to rewatch TNG.
It is.
And I can keep going. I can keep going with this. Finally, the Acolyte has some competition.
It's true. It's sad, but true.
This looks absolutely horrendous. Just when you think Kurtzman couldn't sink any lower. Yeah, and other people saying that the Orville is actually far better than Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, these are shows nobody's asking for. Who's asking for them?
My big question to you, and that's obviously the name of the video, is Star Trek a dead franchise?
Very dead, Mr. Spock.
Yeah, completely dead. But to the point where it's dead and it's now undead. So it's like being danced around like a corpse at a party. Do you know what I mean? Or it's a bit like
Zombie.
Yeah, or Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. Someone's like got bits of skin from Kirk and a bit of Picard, and they're dressing up, and I'm Star Trek.
Yeah.
Star Trek's dead as we know it. If Discovery had been called something else, you would be forgiven for thinking it would nothing to do with, because it doesn't have really anything to do with the Star Trek we knew. So the pace and the entire, you can watch an episode of Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise. They all have a very similar aesthetic, pace, lighting. You can tell that they belong to the same universe together. Those are completely alien, forgive the pun, to
you're right.
These products that they're pumping out now, and it's Star Trek in name only. And I would say it's probably the same for a lot of these franchises. Marvel, Star Wars are all guilty of the same thing. They absolutely pump that tit dry, and it's
I'm gonna have to insert that clip of Luke Skywalker and that's
Yeah, but instead it's like, it's just dust. There's nothing left. They might call it Star Trek, but it's not Star Trek.
They'll never get back to what it was. I
No,
think
they can't.
the creativity is completely gone. Alex Kurtzman, me personally, I think he should be ashamed of the fact that he's done this to Star Trek. He's killed off essentially a beloved franchise that has legions and legions of fans. They've tried to change it into something that, quite frankly, it is not. Core Star Trek fans don't want to see this tripe. We want to see good storytelling. We want to see science fiction. Do you remember when Star Trek was about science fiction?
Yeah, I don't even know if you could classify it in the same way.
It's like science fantasy now, isn't it?
It's
Almost
closer
like
to Star Wars. It's closer to Star Wars. And I think this speaks to a wider problem in the industry where these same old horses are being dragged out for the races because people know the name.
No.
Star Trek's on its deathbed, and it's like, come on, you've got one more show to do. Please let me go. No. So the question is, people are going to ask, well, what would you do? Just don't do it. It's over. It was great. We've had hundreds and hundreds of episodes. Maybe it's had its day.
Talk about milking a dead cat. Is that a phrase? Milking a dead. Can you milk a cat? Milking a dead pig? Milking a dead cow? What do you milk? A cow or a goat?
Losing his mind.
I don't know what you've done there.
This is what Star Trek has done to me. It's just completely mushed my brains.
I think you're talking about beating the dead horse.
Beating a dead horse with a dead cat.
No, but it's like milking the dead cat. I was like, what? I think you've taken like 3 phrases there, just morphed them all together. Probably a bit like the writers do.
I've two-vixed it, haven't I?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that would never happen now. And as funny as that is, that comment, you've got, for people who've not seen that episode, it's Tuvok and Neelix are in a transporter accident and they are beamed together and they become a brand new being. And everyone's like, oh, that's quite funny. And you can imagine the most serious character and the wackiest character. But then you've got this dilemma where this new character doesn't want to be parted because they're a new being, and it's this dilemma of I don't want to die.
I essentially killed 2 characters to create this one character, and it's going back to the Spock saying the need to the many outweigh the need to the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's an interesting episode, that one is. I think it's quite it's almost like the opposite to the original series episode where Kirk is split in 2. So he's got two separate personalities. He's evil Kirk, and then there's wimpy Kirk.
Yeah, that's a really great episode, and I think shows had more time to breathe then. So, especially back in the original Star Trek days, you got a lot of time to really
high concept, sci-fi.
And again, with the Tuvix episode, it's that's given space to breathe. But nowadays, that would happen, and there'd be an explosion somewhere, and lasers, more lasers, but more lasers, and then a Death Star.
Yeah. Right. I think we'll end it there.
On that note.
On that note, yeah. Star Trek's dead. So is my will to live when it comes to watching Star Trek going forward.
I won't watch it, honestly, unless I read somewhere it's beyond expectation is actually the best thing ever. Then okay, I'll admit I'm wrong, but I don't think it will be.
I mean, I was tempted to watch it just so I can review it and just pan it, and I thought I haven't got the energy for that. There's other people out there who will do that.
Watch Alien. That's good.
Alien Earth is great, and I've got a couple more videos. Well, yeah, I'll be coming out with a video for episodes 3 and 4 within the next week.
Yeah, look forward to that, dude. Yeah, it was a good video you did last time. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. So I've been Colm from the Critical Cinema Club.
I've been Sean.
Star Trek is dead, but the Critical Cinema Club is very much alive.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you.